Yo guys, what's up and welcome to r/NuclearRevenge, where revenge is not only extreme, but even radioactive. If you're new around here, don't forget to subscribe. And now, without any further ado, let's dive right in. I did not go nuclear, I went supernova. This is my first post on here, so please bear with me. Just a little background to start off. I was an exterminator for better than a decade and was only a few credits shy of a degree in entomology. Needless to say, I know my stuff when it comes to anything one might consider creepy and or crawly. With all this being said, I was a specialist for the absolute worst kinds of infestations. I treated for bedbugs small cousins to ticks that only drink human blood. I bet you think you know where this is going, and just to cut you off, no. I never intentionally infested anyone. In fact, the revenge in this story is not even for me. It was for what turned out to be one of the sweetest women I have ever met. For the purpose of the story, we are going to call her Mary. She was a nurse in WW2. I was called out to Mary's home by the management of the subsidized apartments. She had complained about a small bug issue. What I found when I got there was not a small bug issue, and still haunts me a little to this day. When Mary answered the door, she was covered in bedbugs. Her hair, her clothes, even crawling on her hands. Without going into too much grisly detail about insect biology, this is not normal. Bedbugs don't like touching human skin, and they don't hunt when people are up in moving. That is why the bed is the most prevalent place to find them, and thus the name. I immediately called an ambulance, waited on them to arrive, and warned them about the very real possibility that anywhere they took her would be in severe danger of being infested if they did not do something to decontaminate her. The poor woman was suffering from anemia, and it was luck of biology that she had not gone into toxic shock from the number of bites she had received. When she was rushed off after having to be hosed off, literally sprayed with a hose, and having her clothes taken from her in semi-private, revenge mode started. Bedbug treatments are expensive, very expensive, and I have made a lot of contacts with local Department of Social Services and the Adult Protective Services because of the amount of charity of work I had done. Every single one of them got a phone call. Subsidized apartments have rules, including that they have to make routine checks. For an infestation to get to that level, it had gone unchecked for years. She had been being eaten alive for years. I called the local news, warned every neighbor, and collected statements about exactly how often the maintenance staff and management had entered the apartments. Once DSS and APS was done, I urged every single person who was put in jeopardy of infestation to file civil suits and recommended a lawyer I had done some work for in the past. He was more than happy to take the cases as a class action suit. By the end, I had the manager of the apartments arrested for elderly abuse and neglect, and the entire staff from the top down fired. They had been falsifying paperwork saying they had been inside the apartments performing routine maintenance and generally scamming the government for services they did not actually provide. I visited Mary for a while after that, checking in since it did not seem anyone else had in a long time. She was a wonderful person and she never deserved to have to live like that. Her health recovered for a while, but time eventually came for her. I will never forget her or forgive the people that allowed it to happen in the first place. Have you guys ever had bedbugs? Fortunately enough, I never had to deal with them. Frankly, I don't even know if they exist in Germany, but they probably do. But they do exist in Thailand, and I've seen them a few times there. But let's continue to story number 2. Guy takes advantage of my little sister's disability and I snap. And by the way, if you have watched until here, please post some stars in the comments to let me know that you are an awesome ripe star. A quick preface. This all happened about a year back. I will not be using real names because I could be in deep trouble if I did. All actors in this story will have their names replaced with yo-yo references. This is a long one. Context: my little sister, henceforth known as Holly, is mute. She can actually whisper a little, but it takes a lot of effort on her part. She's been mute ever since she was 5, when she lost her ability to speak in an accident. She's very smart and she's a good-looking kid. At the time of these events, she was 16 and I was 21. Me and my sister live together in an apartment because my mother is a Roma who is not well suited to take care of a teenager. She has our twin kid siblings, but not my sister and I. My dad is distant from the family, so helping my sister through high school falls to me. I work at a car parts shipping company, so I get paid just enough to get by. Because of our relatively poor living situation and my sister's inability to speak, she gets bullied at school. Generally, it is not much of a problem, but in the few months leading up to these events, she was having increased problems with it built up. At the time, Holly was 16, but she was a sophomore in high school due to failing a year in middle school. She refuses to take special ed courses now because they did not help her at all. Because she's good looking and is older than most of her class, she gets attention from juniors and seniors. It's mostly negative attention, but there was one guy who I will refer to as Dio from now on. He's the villain of this story, who treats her really nicely. He is a senior and at this time is 18. He repels bullies from her because he's a tall, handsome, tough guy and bullies don't want to mess with him. I don't interfere with them because my sister is visibly happy when she comes home from school and whenever she's around him. I did not let them hang out alone together, but supervised them hanging out a few times. Anyway, King Crimson a few months and she stops coming home happy. She's not hanging out with him anymore either, and although I ask her multiple times, she won't tell me anything about it. I confront him about it and he evades the topic. At this point, I'm suspicious, but I don't know what to be suspicious of. Researching. I'm getting more and more worried about Holly, so I go to her counselor and assistant principal to ask about her activities at school. From what I learn, she still spends all her free time near Dio at school. I find this strange since she does not seem happy anymore. This is where the illegal stuff starts. A few days later, I invite Holly and Dio on a dinner night to Olive Garden. No one can resist Olive Garden. While we are there, I do two things that are completely illegal. I steal his phone, which I've seen the password to, and second, I read his texts and emails. Anything I can to find out what has happened between them. I don't find what I'm looking for, but I do find out that he drinks and smokes weed with his friends on weekends. This will be relevant later. A few days later, I find his phone in the laundry and say it must have ended up in one of our coats on accident. I know for a fact he got it back because he called me to thank me for having Holly return it. I still did not have what I was looking for, so I went back to the school and used his previous texts as grounds to check CCTV for any suspicious activity. There was not anything suspicious by school standards, but there was something that caught my eye. It was my sister going to the central bathroom in the school and him going to the boys' room of the same bathroom about a minute later. The bathrooms are separated by a wall, but there's a janitorial closet that opens into both bathrooms and is completely in the blind zone of anyone walking into the bathrooms, let alone the CCTV cameras. At this point, I began to suspect that something was happening between them in that bathroom. It was the only one with a closet like that, and if my memory served me, the closet did not have a proper lock. It just locked from the outside on both sides. Boiling point. Now that I suspected something, I confronted Holly about it. She broke down crying, and after 15 minutes of consoling, she shakily signed to me something that made my blood boil. Apparently, it was far worse than I expected. I had thought that they were going in there and doing drugs or something, since Dio was the kind of guy who would pull that kind of thing. As it turns out, according to Holly, he brought her in there one day, closed the doors, held her down and abused her. He told her that he would know if she told anyone and he would hurt her if she did. Because she physically could not scream for help or make any kind of loud noise for that matter, he got away with it. And the worst part is, he was threatening her into meeting him there every couple of days and doing that to her. I was livid. My first instinct was to call the police, but I realized that there was no evidence except the testimony of a mute girl. I would not be satisfied with police intervention anyway. The first thing I did was call Holly in for a week from school. Family emergency can get them a week of excused absences easily. The next thing I did was find out where he lived. After that, I planned the most brutal revenge I could think of. Highly illegal revenge. My first step was to break into his house. It turns out his parents go out a lot and he leaves to smoke and drink with his friends. I knew from reading his text that there was a spare key on top of the porch light in the backyard. That Saturday, I scoped out the place and waited for everyone to leave. I then began phase 1 of my revenge. I went into his house, through the back door and found his room. I smashed his PC, stole his wallet and pissed on his bed. Then I poorly hid 2 small bags of weed in his house. I have a friend who grows. Finally, to hide the fact that it was targeted, I tossed up the rest of the house but did not take anything. I then went to a Starbucks and used the Wi-Fi and Dio's debit card, he did not have credit, to purchase a bunch of sex toys in his name and sent them to his house. I then left his wallet sitting near a homeless man sleeping on a park bench. Next, I contacted his parents and told them I had seen their son drinking and smoking with a group of teenagers. They were furious, which leads me to believe that was not the first time something like that happened. Finally, I went to the back road he walked on his way home from his drinking parties, which I had found out in a text from one of his friends. I waited for 2 hours in some bushes for him to walk by, and then, wearing sunglasses and a hoodie, I jumped him. I demanded his money and phone, although I knew he did not have his wallet. I kept one hand in my hoodie pocket, pointing it like I had a gun, which he believed. He handed over his phone and ran away. I then finished up my plan by using his phone, which I still had the password to send an email to the school from his school email confessing to raping my sister in the janitorial closet multiple times, as well as possessing drugs on school grounds and drinking alcohol when he was underage. Then I snapped his phone on my knee and went home. Aftermath. My sister went back to school the following Monday, armed with a can of mace I bought her. Dio was not at school and she was called in by her counselor. She confessed and he was charged with rape, underage drinking and illegal drug possession. On top of that, his parents completely disowned him and he was expelled from the school. Sadly, this story does not have a completely happy end. This whole ordeal sent Holly into a downward spiral. Her grades fell behind and she barely smiled. In March of 2018, she attempted suicide by cutting herself, and it was pure luck that I found her in time. She's getting better now, but the emotional trauma will probably affect her for life. I pray to whatever cruel gods are out there that he gets a taste of his own medicine in prison. Well, I would say that guy not only deserved that, but he deserves much more. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed r/NuclearRevenge for today. If you did, feel free to smash that like button and also subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. I hope you have a fantastic day and I see you tomorrow.